Hi, my name is Adrian Miller-Bradford, and I will be doing a summary of the key points in the current literature about teaching children safety skills. So what is currently known is that there are effective strategies for teaching safety to children. These include in situ assessments, which are conducted before and after trainings. And in situ assessments, they involve placing a child in the actual environment with a safety threat and then observing their behavior. There is also in situ training, IST, which is similar to the assessment, except for when the child displays inappropriate behavior, the trainer will intervene and immediately begin using behavioral skills training, BST, to teach the appropriate behavior. And so IST, it improves the effectiveness of other trainings, and it is also effective as a standalone procedure. Behavioral skills training, BST, that involves instruction, modeling, rehearsal, feedback, and then more instruction / rehearsal, just until the child has acquired the skill. And it is more effective when combined with in situ training, IST. To go more in depth about the assessments, in situ assessments, they test the child's response to a situation in their natural environment. It illustrates what skills the child currently possesses, and then when the assessment is done after the training program, it illustrates what skills were acquired after the training. And so these assessments are done without the child's knowledge, without any trusted adult around, and they are highly recommended by researchers because, as opposed to verbal reports or role play assessments, because what a child says they will do given a situation is sometimes very different from what they actually do in the face of the real event. And so, unfortunately, there are ethical concerns so that the assessments can't be done in certain areas, like in sexual abuse prevention research, because of just the nature of those particular dangers. In situ training is, again, similar to the assessment, except for the trainer immediately intervenes if the child is responding inappropriately and starts a BST session. IST is able to enhance the generalization effects of BST because it uses the natural environment with the safety threat. And so, again, many studies have shown the effectiveness of IST in conjunction with BST and other approaches, and then also as a standalone procedure. And so this effectiveness may be due to the combination of the child wanting to avoid that aversive situation of being caught doing wrong, and receiving positive reinforcement for appropriate responses to the danger. Behavioral skills training, multiple studies have emphasized the importance of that cycle of rehearsal, feedback, rehearsal, immediate feedback, and how that helps the child to acquire the safety skills. BST is found to be superior to other approaches because of this multiple rehearsal cycle. And so the general finding, though, is that while many studies applaud the ability of the multiple rehearsals to influence BST's effectiveness, others have found that it's more effective when combined with IST. This is why if you look at Table 19.1, steps in teaching safety skills to children, the first step is, of course, that in situ assessment, and then the next step you implement the BST, then you conduct that post-training in situ assessment, and then if the child hasn't shown that they've acquired the skill, then you would do an IST until the child exhibits the skills. And of course, the final step is just conducting those follow-up assessments and implementing booster ISTs if needed. And so some of the major barriers to an effective program for teaching safety skills are just that accessibility. And so increasing the accessibility of the success found in BST and IST, they can be done through 4 strategies that studies have researched, and those include group training, so teaching children safety skills in a group, Parent implementing training, teaching the parent who then teaches the child. Peer implemented training, using peers as trainers. And simulated training, using computer simulations, especially with those difficult safety skills that you want the child to have, like sexual abuse prevention. And so individual versus group training, one study, Dancho et al., they used BST to teach poison prevention to a group of children. And these were 15 typically developing preschool children between the ages of 3 to 5, and they were put in groups of 3 to 4. And so this study demonstrated the effectiveness of teaching the effectiveness of BST in teaching safety skills to children. Unfortunately, the authors discovered some limits to teaching within a group. In some cases, the authors had to combine BST with other methods like in situ response interruption. So while the children were able to learn in the groups, it still took individual time for some students to acquire the necessary safety skills. And so thus more research is needed to determine how best to implement group training in order to overcome this barrier of time and personnel resources. And so for parent implementing training, Miltenberger and Thies Duffy, they evaluated the efficacy of BST and using a book designed to teach children about bad touches and then on teaching personal safety to children. And so the authors used parents to implement the study because many children encounter danger from strangers and sexual abuse by known family members before they start school. So teaching the parents to teach the children is a good way to access that home setting since the children aren't in school to learn it there. And so the authors used 2 groups for their study. One group used the prevention book by itself, and the other group used prevention with instructions. And so the parents who just used the book taught their child in whatever way they thought best using the book. And so the parents with the instructions along with the book, they followed the procedure developed by the authors that included some components of BST. And so all participants acquired the safety skills after BST, but only the older children maintained the skills after 2 months. And so the authors discuss just the difficulty in parents implementing the program with fidelity and how this can affect the effectiveness of increasing accessibility. It's very important that the parents are able to follow the proper protocols. And so peer implemented training, Jostad et al. 2008, they taught peers to tutor other children about firearm safety. They used BST to teach their peers 2 objectives: appropriate responses to firearms and how to use BST to teach other children. It is costly and time consuming to teach firearm safety skills to every single student. However, using peers offers the possibility of reaching more students and therefore reducing that cost and time necessary for safety skills training. The authors found that peer training could be effective in teaching children firearm safety skills. They use IST during failed assessments to correct and redirect students. However, more research is still needed to determine how to implement peer training and if peer training can be used with other safety issues. The final strategy is computer simulated training. Vanslo and Hanley, 2014, used their study to determine the efficacy of a computer game based off of BST in generalizing learned safety skills across multiple dangers. Their primary purpose was to discover if a computer-based game could overcome the effort and time it would take to implement the training on an individual level, as well as make the acquisition of safety skills easier. The authors discovered generalization between similar dangers like lighters and poisons with just the computer-based game, but participants required IST when it came to a different safety threat like stranger danger. So through this, though, the authors discovered the possibility of a stimulus class of dangers through their study. And so the use of a computer-based BST in conjunction with IST can definitely lead to a reduction in effort and time for those in charge of teaching safety skills. And so it's definitely something to look into. And then finally, the final obstacle to implementing effective and efficient safety skills programming is generalization and maintenance. All of the studies listed in the references section emphasize the difficulty in generalizing skills into other environments and maintaining those skills. So there is definitely just a great need for research surrounding different stimulus classes of danger and just ways to implement follow-up and booster trainings for maintenance of safety skills. And so thank you. That is my presentation. Here are my references, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.